My name is Jennifer, and I was just the secretary. Not in a demeaning way, but in the way that the world often treats those behind the scenes, visible enough to be necessary, invisible enough to be ignored. I worked for Mr. Carter, the CEO of a major corporation. A man with a sharp suit, a sharper mind, and a family everyone thought he adored. A wife, 2 kids, a perfect suburban life. From the outside, he was untouchable, impeccable, respectable. And yet, for reasons I couldn't understand at first, he became obsessed with me. It started small. An email that lingered too long with compliments that personal. A lingering hand on my shoulder when passing by my desk. Jennifer, could you come in for a moment? A phrase that made my stomach tighten, even though the request was always work-related. At first, I brushed it off. He was my boss. He had power. He had influence. And I needed this job. But soon, the signs escalated. Late nights in the office became necessary meetings. The tone of his voice shifted whenever I entered a room. He praised my work excessively in front of others, but always with a strange intensity, a possessiveness that no one else seemed to notice. Other staff whispered, "You know he's married, right? He has 2 kids. Be careful." I nodded politely, keeping my distance. I didn't want trouble. I didn't want gossip. I didn't want anyone to think I was flirting back. But he didn't stop. He started sending private messages, sometimes after hours, complimenting my intelligence, my appearance, even my choice of outfits. He called me by nicknames I hadn't agreed to. He leaned too close in meetings, always checking on something I supposedly missed, but I felt the tension every time his proximity crossed boundaries. I knew something was very wrong. The man was married. The man had kids. The man had a reputation to uphold, and yet he acted as if none of that mattered. I realized it wasn't admiration. It was obsession. It started with small favors. He'd ask me to stay late to organize files, then to prepare documents for a private meeting, then to cover for him during calls he didn't want others to hear. At first, I believed it was just part of the job, but the pattern quickly became unmistakable. His private meetings always lasted longer than necessary. He would sit across from me at his massive mahogany desk, leaning forward just slightly too close, letting his gaze linger in ways no professional should. "Jennifer," he'd say softly, "you understand me better than anyone in this office." Every word felt calculated, intoxicating, and terrifying. I began noticing other signs. Emails with subtle compliments that hinted at obsession rather than professional praise. Notes left on my desk praising my dedication and charm. Occasional references to his marital unhappiness, casually suggesting he needed someone who really understood him. He was trying to convince me, slowly, that he was the victim, and I was the confidant. Meanwhile, I started seeing the effect of his obsession on office dynamics. He subtly undermined other assistants, making me feel like I was the only one trusted. He called meetings at odd hours to accommodate me, ensuring I had little time to interact with other colleagues. He complimented me in front of higher-ups, yet always added remarks that made it clear I was special, his secret asset. The tension escalated when he started inviting me to lunch alone. "Just you and me." He smiled that didn't reach his eyes. "Your husband doesn't mind you missing this, right?" The implication hung in the air like a storm cloud. I felt trapped. Fear and anger coexisted. I knew he was crossing lines, yet no one would believe me if I complained. He was the CEO, the golden image of success, respectability, and family values. Who would believe the secretary over him? Then came the moment that made me realize I couldn't just endure silently anymore. He asked me to go to his home, just to discuss some confidential work issues, he said, smiling like it was innocent. I froze. My heart raced. This was too far. I knew I had to take action. Not confrontational yet, but careful. Not reactive, but strategic. I couldn't fight him with force. I had to fight him with evidence. Once I stopped excusing his behavior, I couldn't unsee it. Every interaction suddenly felt staged, calculated, predatory. He started inventing reasons to summon me into his office, reasons that didn't require anyone else to be present. "Close the door, Jennifer. Confidential," he'd say, even when the topic was a routine schedule update. The door would click shut behind me, and the air would change. He never sat behind his desk anymore. Instead, he'd lean against it, arms crossed, watching me like I was an object being evaluated, rather than an employee doing her job. "You always look so composed," he once said, eyes drifting over me slowly. "Do you practice that?" I laughed awkwardly, pretending I didn't understand, but I understood. He started commenting on things no boss should ever notice. "You wore your hair differently yesterday. I prefer it like today. That color suits you. You should wear it more often. You don't need to be nervous around me. I take care of people who are loyal." That word, loyal, made my stomach twist. He'd stand too close behind my chair when I worked on his computer, his hand resting on the desk beside mine, his presence looming. Once, when I shifted uncomfortably, he smiled. "You don't have to move," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." I went cold. Who says that unless the thought already crossed their mind? He began asking personal questions disguised as concern. "Are you seeing anyone? Do you live alone? Who do you talk to when you're stressed?" When I answered vaguely, he frowned, not angry but possessive. "I should know these things," he said once. "I'm responsible for you." That night I started writing everything down. Dates, times, exact words, because my instincts were screaming, and I refused to let him rewrite reality the way powerful men always do. The creepiness escalated in subtler, more disturbing ways. He rearranged my schedule so I was the last one in the office with him. He reassigned tasks so I had to accompany him to meetings instead of other executives. He canceled group lunches and replaced them with working lunches for just the two of us. Once, during a meeting with investors, he placed his hand on my lower back while introducing me. "This is Jennifer," he said proudly. I couldn't function without her. Everyone laughed politely. No one noticed my frozen smile. Another time, I found a gift on my desk. No note, no explanation, just an expensive bracelet. When I tried to return it, he waved it off. "Consider it appreciation," he said. "Don't make it awkward." But it was awkward. It was inappropriate. It was a test. And when I didn't wear it the next day, his mood shifted. Suddenly my work was not up to standard. Suddenly deadlines were tighter. Suddenly I was being watched. That's when I realized something terrifying. He didn't just want me. He wanted control. And the more I resisted quietly, the more obsessed he became. He started hinting at his marriage, always painting himself as the victim. "My wife doesn't understand me. She only cares about appearances. I feel invisible in my own home." I never responded. I just listened and recorded. Because men like him always think their position protects them. They think secretaries don't fight back. They think silence means submission. They think no one is watching. He was wrong. By now, his obsession had evolved into something unmistakably dangerous. It wasn't just compliments or gifts anymore. It was control disguised as admiration, and every day I felt its suffocating weight. He would hover near my desk for hours, leaning casually, but always just close enough to intimidate. If I typed too slowly, he'd sigh. If I glanced at someone else in the office, he would comment, "Focus, Jennifer. You know I expect your full attention." He started timing my bathroom breaks, not overtly, but casually. "Be quick. Don't keep me waiting." He would smirk when I hurried. Emails became more personal. He'd copy me on innocuous company memos and add a single line at the bottom, "I hope you understand how much I value you." When I didn't reply, the next message was sharper. "Jennifer, I notice when I don't hear from you." Meetings that used to involve other executives slowly became private. "Confidential," he'd say, a smile hiding the edge of menace behind it. He began leaning so close I could feel his breath when discussing numbers, deadlines, budgets, all disguised as mentoring. One day, after a long afternoon, he invited me into his office for what he called a career discussion. I could feel my pulse spike. "Jennifer," he said, leaning back in his leather chair, "I trust you more than anyone in this company. You know that, right?" I nodded, keeping my voice neutral. "I have plans for you," he continued. "I want you to succeed, but I also need you to be loyal to me, understand?" The word loyal hit me like ice. I knew exactly what he meant. "You'll be rewarded if you do what I ask," he said, eyes locking on mine. "Ignored, or worse, if you don't." My hands trembled. He thought he had me trapped. He thought his position and his subtle terror would keep me silent. But I had started documenting everything, every step, every word, every lingering look, hidden audio recordings, screenshots of messages, not just proof. I was building my shield. The next week, he escalated further, asking me to stay late under the pretense of helping with a report. The office emptied around us. He leaned closer than ever. "You're the only one who understands me, Jennifer. I don't need anyone else." That was the moment I realized. He had overstepped. He had gone too far. And he had left an opening. Because he never considered that I could outsmart him, that I could be deliberate, strategic, patient. I would not confront him with anger. I would not make a mistake that could ruin me. I would expose him, not to the office, not yet, to the person whose judgment he feared most, his wife. I started preparing quietly, every evidence piece meticulously organized, every recording time-stamped, every message backed up. He believed I was under his influence completely. He believed I was intimidated. He believed I had no allies. He was wrong. And the day I finally revealed everything, his life and career would collapse. I didn't rush the moment. That was the key. Men like him rely on urgency, panic, secrecy, impulse. I gave him none of that. Instead, I waited until I had everything. Months of messages, audio recordings where his voice softened into entitlement, emails where professional appreciation slipped into obsession, calendar entries showing how he isolated me after hours, witness patterns, how other assistants were rotated out, how I was kept close. And then there was the final piece, his wife. Her name was Evelyn Carter. She wasn't just the CEO's wife. She was a major shareholder, quiet, observant, known in the company as someone who did not tolerate humiliation, especially public humiliation. Most people underestimated her. He did too. I requested a meeting with her under the guise of administrative clarification. I made sure it was formal, documented, and scheduled during a time when he was traveling. When she walked into the conference room, she looked calm, polished, curious. "You wanted to speak with me?" she asked. "Yes," I said, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. "About your husband." I didn't start with accusations. I started with facts. I slid a folder across the table. Dates, times, direct quotes. Then I played the recordings. Her expression didn't change at first. Not anger, not shock, just focus. When she finally spoke, her voice was controlled but deadly quiet. "How long?" "Over a year," I said, and escalating. She listened to everything, every last second. When it was over, she closed the folder carefully. "Thank you for not going public," she said. "That tells me everything I need to know about your integrity." I didn't respond. I just waited. Because I knew what was coming. The next morning, the company announced an emergency board meeting. By afternoon, rumors spread faster than wildfire. By evening, his name was gone from the executive directory. He was removed quietly but completely. No farewell email, no announcement praising his years of service, no golden parachute, just gone. The next day, Evelyn called me back into that same conference room. "My husband abused his position," she said plainly, "and he did so repeatedly." She slid a new document across the table. My promotion, not just a title change, a departmental leadership role. You handled this with professionalism and restraint, she continued. This company needs people like that. I accepted. Not with a smile, with dignity. When he tried to contact me afterward, emails, calls, apologies masked as explanations, I blocked every single one. Because the man who once believed I was powerless now had no power at all. And me, I was no longer just the secretary, I was the woman who ended a CEO's career and rose stronger from it.